I've been nothing but honest about my assessment about this kind of stuff. And if you want to hear something else, you don't need to tune in. But I'm here to give my read. And that's it. I'm not trying to demobilize anybody. In fact, I think it's actually galvanizing to say, like, you can push this person. Let's push. Let's push. You know, with Biden, it felt so hopeless because of his ossified brain, because of his racism, because of the nature of, like, him being willing to tank the election for Israel. I think I'm speaking pretty much in lockstep with the uncommitted activists, who, including the speaker, who should have been on the stage, the Georgia state representative there, Ruah Roman, is voting for Harris and is indicating that she feels that she'd be better. The uncommitted Abbas
Alawi and Layla El-Abed are the co-founders,
is also voting for Harris and thinks she'll be better. And in our conversation with Daniel Denver, they said they'd made incremental progress. So you don't need to like what I have to say, but I don't want. But
that's deferential to what they are saying.
But if you accuse me of lying, I'm going to get annoyed because I've been nothing but honest about my assessment about this kind of stuff. And if you want to hear something else, you don't need to tune in. But I'm here to give my read. And that's it. I'm not trying to demobilize anybody. In fact, I think it's actually galvanizing to say, like, you can push this person. Let's push. Let's push. You know, with Biden, it felt so hopeless because of his ossified brain, because of his racism, because of the nature of, like, him being willing to tank the election for Israel. And if you don't want to reckon with, like, Biden's record on this, that's on you. Because we've had people on this program talk about Biden's history and record on this, about him being, throughout his career in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s in the Senate, being the most right-wing Democrat on Israel.
I was just offering an assessment. This is the assessment. I've seen a lot of people, Olayemi as well. Olayemi is getting so many people on Twitter specifically going after her, who, by the way, Olayemi just put out a video in which he interviews members of the uncommitted movement, Palestinian Americans, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, specifically talking about this very issue to give a voice to people who don't have as many platforms or the opportunity to do so, which is, I think at this time, very important. The same thing applies to the Majority Report. The Majority Report, like, their segments are like the exact inverse of mine. My show is like 90% dick jokes and fucking bits and silly voices, and then like 10% substance. Their entire middle section of the Majority Report is usually interviewing somebody who is going to speak from a anti-imperialist angle, who's going to speak about the U.S. empire, who's going to speak about their war crimes, who's going to speak about their atrocities, who's going to try, like, that's usually the middle section. If you're not a regular watcher of their show, that's usually the middle, right? The start is like some really quick headlines. Here's some of the news. The middle is usually an interview with someone who would not have a platform or a voice otherwise, outside of maybe Democracy Now! In the United States, but that's usually the middle. And then the ending is the fun half, the silly half, where they get into like a whole bunch of silly stuff. With Olayemi and her channel, she's got like one channel that focuses on politics, in which she will oftentimes do what not a lot of other creators will do, which is platform marginalized voices. And she does, yes, specifically platform a lot of black content creators who don't have other voices or platforms to get that kind of information from. Both of them have stated emphatically that they are not friends or fans of, say, the Biden-Harris administration, of the Democratic Party. They see them in the same respect that, like, I see politicians in Canada. They don't represent me. I don't have representation. There's not like sometimes there's the closest would be like the Greens or the NDP, but like those are still kind of center left, and in the Greens case, just utterly bizarre sometimes. Politics I'm completely opposed to, but there's no leftist politician and mainstream politician. It's like a character select screen for your enemy or your opponent if you are a leftist, right? You're not going to have the kind of representation that you want, but I would rather play with an opponent who's not going to obviously completely in inverse remove every single kind of social safety net that we have, privatize healthcare, completely eliminate public options, restrict reproductive healthcare access, vilify homosexuals, vilify trans people, try to turn politics completely into a culture war, aka just trying to accelerate the oppression of minorities, do nothing for land back, do nothing for indigenous rights, do nothing for indigenous sovereignty. Like, that's what I get in the other direction with conservatives. That's what Americans get in the other direction with Republicans, right? When Republicans are going full fucking fascistic in their rhetoric and their tone and their policy positions, like they're saying what used to be like, you know, the quiet part. Now they just fucking belt it out loud that's what they're going for. That's what the option comes down to. Does that absolve Kamala Harris of her complicity in genocide? Absolutely fucking not. It's like there's a huge difference too, and a gap, I guess, between like spending time canvassing for politicians, spending time knocking on doors, spending time doing phone calls. I have done that for local politicians and local races, like our mayoral race. I've done that for provincial elections, you know, for our local candidates, and I've done that for federal elections. But I've only ever done that kind of stuff for people who I fundamentally align with and believe in, right? Like I've done that almost exclusively for Indigenous politicians in Canada, literally trying to fight for Indigenous sovereignty, ending the oppression of all people, like, you know, the very far left candidates. Then yes, I will put your pins. I think I still have, you know, Breen Ouellette's pins up there. Yeah, they're hanging off the jellyfish behind me. I'll knock on doors. I will canvass. I will get involved. I will donate money, and I'll donate time to someone like that. If it's a straight up like, hey, there's a liberal candidate, this is the only fucking potential, it's between a liberal and literally a fucking far right ghoul in this small riding, those are really the two choices it's coming down to. No, I'm not going to be knocking on doors for the lib and the blah blah blah, especially when they are like horrified humans. But when it comes to my moment at the ballot box and I step there, well then yes, I'm going to be like, well, this one person is going to erode my rights way quicker than this other person. Boom, X. I'm not like, oh, I'm signing off on their policies. You're my friend. I love you as a politician. You represent me. This is a cult of personality for me. It's like, goddamn no. It's just in the Super Smash Brothers character select screen of life. I'm going to be in this case because politics is literally lives. We're dealing with policy that affects people, and in the case of a lot of these Western nations, affects people globally. But there's not going to be a liberal politician who comes along, a Justin Trudeau, who's going to stand up on the podium and be like, hey, I don't know if everyone around the world knows this, but Canada is responsible for 60% of the world's mining corporations that do a lot of the atrocious shit on a global scale. No one knows this, tee-hee, but it's just like Canada's best kept secret. We're the ones doing that. We're also backed up and protected by the might of the U.S. empire, the America. Yeah, that's why other countries don't fuck with us, despite us being so monstrously huge. Just as a country, Canada is massive. If you look at it on a map, you know, compare it to other land masses, it's huge. There's a lot of reasons for other stronger nations to want to take up a lot of Canadian land, but they don't, because no one wants to fuck with America, because America has all the bombs and the guns and the weapons and the planes and all the shit, that kind of stuff. So that's why we get to pretend to be these little peacekeepers, this wonderful little nation in the corner. But I'm not gonna have a Justin Trudeau say that. There's not going to be a Justin Trudeau who does that. There's not going to be a liberal who comes up and brings attention to that. You might get some good policies that were better than under the Conservatives. You're not going to get the scientists being muzzled on climate change. You're going to get legalized marijuana. These things are good. You're going to have the protection of reproductive freedom. You're not going to have the vilification of LGBTQ plus people domestically. But is anyone going to hold to account all of these horrifying mining corporations in Canada, or how the RCMP definitely infringes on the sovereignty of Indigenous people? No, you're not. Are you going to get it worse with Conservative? Yes. You are. It's shitty. It's the world we live in. It's garbage. I don't feel that I am directly represented by politicians, and haven't most of my life. It's fucking brutal. But it's one of those things where, like, if Emma Vigeland was repeatedly saying, you know, Kamala Harris is going to end the genocide of Palestinians, she's going to recognize an independent Palestinian state, day one when she comes to power, she's going to end all aid to Israel, she's going to sanction Israel, she's going to hold them accountable for war crimes, she has stated she's going to personally arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. If she was saying that kind of shit, then yes, I would have every single reason to be like, what the fuck is up with Emma? Like, what is she doing? And the same thing about with Olurinatti. With Olurinatti, if she was making videos to that effect and saying that out loud, or she was like in the newest Olurinatti video, it's like, hey, by the way, I don't know if you all know this, but here are some of the day one promises you're going to get from Kamala Harris. Well, then yeah, I would say the same thing. I'm like, what the fuck is up with Olurinatti lately? Why is she doing this? This is just like propaganda, you know, in one direction. It's just simply not true. But no, when you see the new videos that are coming out on Olurinatti and the new videos that are coming out on Majority Report, etc., none of them are saying this. They're pointing out what exactly is the situation, right? The reality is that yes, day one, Kamala Harris is not going to cut off all funding to Israel. She is a major recipient of AIPAC. She is a stalwart defender of Israel. She is an advocate for U.S.-Israeli relations and policies. She has been all of those things. And I don't think, the Majority Report has ever tried to sidestep this. I think, like everyone else, like every other progressive who literally just wants all of these horrors globally to stop. It doesn't matter if it is, Gaza, Syria, it doesn't matter if it's Afghanistan, doesn't matter if it's Ukraine, doesn't matter if it's Sudan, Congo, like it doesn't matter where or where it is in the world. I think all of us who are aware of what is taking place want it to fucking stop and are trying best we can to find every possible avenue, every way. Hey, by the way, you as a consumer in your everyday life, you can make concerned decisions to do BDS. You can not buy or try to support financially corporations or companies that directly profit off Israeli genocide. You can do that. Do that. That's one tool in the tool set. Hey, by the way, let's bring attention right now to these people who are bravely protesting and doing direct action, literally blocking shipments of bombs right now that are going to Israel. Like, let's pay attention to this. Look how the police are cracking down on it. Let's shine a light on that. Hey, by the way, there happens to be a very local politician who is 100% against the Israeli genocide of Palestinians, who wants to recognize Palestinian statehood. You should be supporting them. Go look into their platform, their stuff. Everyone is doing that in amongst everything else and trying their best, to navigate all this shit, because we want to, yes, all to fucking stop. All of it. All of the unfair exploitation of everybody globally, while all being hypocrites simultaneously, by the way. Yes, I am broadcasting on Twitch, owned by Amazon right now, who are baddies, you know, just an awful corporation. And people are literally like, supporting my show in one venue. It's also on YouTube, which, don't worry, it's owned by Alphabet, a much better company. But yeah, we're all hypocrites to a certain extent, trying to also find that balance within our own lives as well, where it's like, well, yeah, it does take a little bit more sometimes to not, to transfer, say, your entire bank account from the Royal Bank of Canada to, a cooperatively owned institution that does not fund genocide. It takes a little bit of time out of your day to do that, but doing so would actually genuinely have a material effect, especially if it was done on a large scale. If not only 1,000 people did that, but 10,000, but 100,000, but 1 million, say 1 million Canadians all of a sudden took all their money out of the Royal Bank of Canada or out of Scotiabank or one of the other banks that are directly funding a whole bunch of stuff, climate change, genocide, you name it, took your money out of that and then put it into something else, an institution that was cooperatively owned and, gave you the same ability to use debit cards, get a visa, all that kind of stuff, gave you all that kind of thing, but it would have a material change. That would be a great effect, right? It's one of those things where everyone, especially within the nations that are complicit, Canada is complicit, the United States is complicit, the United Kingdom is complicit, all the NATO nations are complicit in one way or another. It's look locally, look to what your own governments are doing as well, right? Like, is your government engaged in a two-way arms embargo? Is your government aware of the crimes committed by corporations within your borders, stuff like that, right?
Like, almost exclusively, not all the time, right? But one of the handful of the most right-wing anti-Palestinian racists. Kamala Harris ran in California. Yeah, she does AIPAC fundraisers. No shit. No shit. That's a massive state. Of course she does that kind of stuff. I'm not saying she's Rashida Tlaib. I'm saying she's a normal Democrat. And even Obama was much better than Biden on Israel. Biden undercut Obama and Hillary Clinton trying to get tough on Netanyahu because he was so obsessed with this mythologizing of Israel as reparations for the Holocaust. No one seems to want to deal with that history when talking about Kamala Harris versus Biden. Oh, it's going to be entirely consistent. Really? Like, I mean, reckon with that first. Is Biden worse than most Democrats on Israel? If you don't think that that's the case, then you just don't want to vote for Democrats, and that's fine. That's fine. That's your decision, right? But that is an actual his actual track record here. And it's distinct and different from a lot of other Democrats. I think her politics are more aligned with Obama's on foreign policy than Biden.
It's not just Biden too. It's this terrible basically association of individuals that he's put himself around, right? Like Anthony Blinken, absolutely terrible when it comes to this issue. John Kirby, absolutely terrible. These are war criminals. It's unfortunate, but it's watching like the coalition once again of the same sentiment I had for a lot of the Bush administration, where it was so many different individuals working in tandem together to try and gaslight the entire country / the world on an issue in which you are directly complicit in war crimes, all of you. And when you're called out on it, like I guess the biggest difference between that period of time and then the period of time that's taking place now is now you have just direct visual evidence of so much of it, and you're able to see so much with your own eyes just how horrifying up close the raw power of the U.S. military industrial complex made weaponry can be with a nation that is using them to ethnically cleanse and commit genocide towards Palestinians. You're able to watch that in real time. But yeah, an absolute association and cohort of the highest schools.
And that's also displayed in who she's hired as her national security advisor as vice president, who is Phil Gordon, who is an Iran deal Democrat, or Iran deal advisor for Obama, which Israel lobbied against. Obama was courageous in that sense. It's maybe the best thing he did as president, honestly. Making the Iran nuclear deal, despite Netanyahu and the Israel lobby getting outraged because they want continued tensions with Iran, because Israel has colonialist aims in the region. So that's her advisor. Biden's advisors are different. They're from the West exec crew. These are substantive things that I just don't understand why people reflexively don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it because it's easier to fall into nihilism than to engage with the little gradations here and then say, this is the crack where we can alleviate this. Let's just throw her hands up. She's exactly the same. She's exactly the same. If that was my honest assessment, I'd say that to you because I was being honest about Biden the entire time. And I mean, you can disagree with me, but don't accuse me of lying, okay?
Can I just also add a little bit
Sure.
to this? I would feel similarly to thinking that there would be no continuation if I looked back on Kamala Harris's career and was like, oh my God, right. Kamala Harris, when she was in the Senate in the 1970s and 80s, Menachem Begin remembered her
Yes.
as someone who was actually almost too bloodthirsty in terms of wanting to kill Palestinians, more than other Senate Republicans, more than Ronald Reagan, in a way where he went back and told his advisors, this one senator from California, he's almost more of has more fealty to the cause than I do, and I'm the president of Israel.
Right. Right.
I would also feel similarly if when there was debates over settlement freezes in the late 2000s that Kamala Harris was going behind her president and her Secretary of State to negotiate backroom deals and consult on speech writing to say we will never actually enter any agreements to actually endorse settlement freezes in the West Bank. But wait, Kamala Harris was born in 1964. She would have been 16 when the 80s started, and I don't believe she was vice president in 2008, 2009. That was just Joe Biden, actually. Because Joe Biden has an ideological, nigh fanatical commitment to Israel. And he mentioned Golda Meir's name to tout his foreign policy bona fides, not so much as 2 or 3 weeks ago when he was being interviewed by George Stephanopoulos. That woman
I think also the saddest thing about all this is that like neither are good, and the bar is just kind of like subterranean when it comes to Biden. He's uniquely evil on this one topic. Whereas like it's like the option then goes to if you're saying that Kamala Harris is going to be more akin to say Obama's policies when it comes to foreign policy, also just terrible. Right? I mean it's kind of like yeah, that also sounds shit. But I guess there is the slight element of yes, Obama on Iran trying to strike the Iran nuclear deal. That in addition to I would say opening up relations, or at least trying to open up relations a little bit more with the global South, including Cuba and including perhaps softening lightly U.S.-Venezuelan conflict and friction. That seemed like at least there seemed to be more of a door opening there for a while under Obama compared to the Trump, obviously.
Was born in the 1800s. Yeah. This is a different circumstance.
It's a different
He
circumstance.
has a fanatical, historical, entrenched, nostalgic, sentimental connection to the state of Israel. It is something. It's like my connection to the New York Jets. It is undying. It is irrational. It's unreasonable, and it's something that can almost not be reasonable. It's not
honestly.
It's not
Israel
something,
is the New York Jets.
It's not something that can be negotiated with.
Yep. Yeah.
Whereas Kamala Harris, whatever she might be saying, whatever her links to AIPAC, whatever she's saying on these stages, she just does. I'm saying it in terms of the argument of negative space. It is not something that she possesses that Biden did. I'm not saying she is going to ultimately become Nora Erekat or
Totally. It's insufficient.
I'm not saying she's going to become someone who becomes militantly pro-Palestine. I have no illusions about that. I'm just saying she does not possess that.
Yes, I am taking up the corner right screen glory, and you're gonna have to accept it. Yeah, I also, by the way, I responded, I think, originally to Emma when she posted about the presidential acceptance speech by Kamala Harris, and I disagreed with her in that, like, I was way more frightened by it and kind of revolted, I think, than the idea. Like, I politely, because again, I'm a huge fan of Emma and Majority Report. Obviously, I was just kind of like, to me, it's like it doesn't signal as much of a change as I would even want, let alone like hope for. It kind of just feels like Biden era policies were coming out of her mouth. Everything from like the upcoming AI war with China to going after Iran to going after North Korea and Kim Jong-un in 2024 to just very war hawkish, using the term lethal for the U.S. military. We must have the most lethal military force in the world. And I know a lot of people's defense to a lot of that speech was that, well, I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, it's not for us, it's not for the left, it's not for progressives, it's to kind of strengthen a lot of the, I'm sure, what is being pulled as how do people perceive her and how do people perceive a potential woman becoming president, which also is an aspect. I'm sure there's a lot of sexism that plays into it as well, where they of course want to have more of a military style strong-esque leader, but that doesn't make it any less frightening. Like a woman driving the U.S. empire is still the U.S. empire. It's still just as scary to me, right? But again, it's one of those things where like I like leftists talking to leftists IRL is the most healthy thing in the world. There's tons of disagreements. People, on the left are consistently just throwing ideas and theories at each other in a loving and respectful way. I think that's very different than suddenly saying that, like, people like Emma Vigeland or Sam Cedar or Matt Binder or Olurinatti, who again is also getting a lot of anger on the internet for this, stating emphatically like there's somehow suddenly like Democrats or liberals or just in full-throated lovers of Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and everything that they represent, when it's like I think they've been very, very clear from the get-go that it's like these are people for whom they see as slightly better than Biden, slightly better than Biden, again, which is one of those things where the menu sucks. This is the reality, and this is the reality with most elections. If it was a restaurant, the menu fucking sucks. You know, you're handed it, and then it's like, shit. Don't want to eat shit. Not a huge fan of shit. Worse shit. See, but I don't want shit at all. I would prefer never to eat shit forever. Like, I don't want to do that, you know? So is there a third option? It's like, not really. Nah. I mean, there is, but you just won't get it. So you can order it. Like, what did you want? Like, maybe a little bowl of some, Kennebec fries, little side of mayo, garlic mayo aioli there. You can order it, but you won't get it. It's not going to arrive. Yeah. But if you order the shit, it will. Or the worst shit. Yes, the worst shit is worse. It's much worse. Who is it worse? But the other one is shit. Absolute shit. Yeah, it's not great. It is, after all, shit.
Something that is a lodestone for Biden's cultural and human imagination that defines him, animates him, and has for 50 years.
He's a
for half
racist.
a
I don't
century.
know what to tell you guys. He is an anti-Palestinian racist. He doesn't see them as human beings. This is quite clear. I mean, and I just think.
Yes, but to add to that, if you are still going to continue shipping bombs, selling arms, and providing the weaponry for Israel to drop the bombs on Palestinians, it doesn't matter if you humanize them in the process. That's like, that's profoundly Canadian, very, very, very Canadian politics right there, 101, where it's just like, well, yes, at the end of the day, Kamala Harris has decided that she's not going to do an arms embargo. She's not going to prevent the sale of weaponry and bombs to Israel, but she does care more deeply about the plight of Palestinians and has said out loud that she wants the suffering to end. She has used those words. She has called for a ceasefire. She has used stronger language than Biden ever has. But again, it's shit and worse shit is kind of it, right? It's like, that's not stopping the bombs. It is as long as there's bombs dropping on children's faces, as long as those bombs are being manufactured and provided for by the United States, and as long as there's no end to that, then the genocide will continue. That's it.
Don't think so, because Palestinian isn't an ethnicity, it's an ideology, and it's an ideology that says that they want Jews dead, and so we want them as far away from Jews as possible.
The would-be settlers take us to the Erez crossing. It used to.
It's just an absolutely wild statement to make. It shows you the degree of dehumanization too, like to have the mindset where it's like, hey, by the way, colonization gets a bad rap. There's good colonization. When you're colonizing, dehumanize people who are bad, and apparently Palestinian is just an ideology. So you have to get in there and cleanse them, and then once you do that, you can settle and replace them with better people, essentially. Ken Klippenstein is publishing leaked documents on Gaza. Leaked diplomatic cables we obtained shows the USAID warning Biden administration that the Israeli military has drastically increased the pace of evacuation orders in Gaza, worsening the humanitarian crisis. Here's what the cable sent from the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem today says. This is a report from the USAID Disaster Assistance Relief Team. Between July 22nd and August 25th, the Israeli Defense Forces drastically increased the pace of evacuation orders from Gaza, issuing or reiterating evacuation orders 20 separate times. Such directives have driven repeated displacement, decreased the size of the government of Israel designed humanitarian zone, in quotation marks, and exacerbated multi-sector humanitarian needs. The evacuation orders and subsequent military operations have likewise further constricted humanitarian space in Gaza, displacing aid workers and impeding access to essential warehouses and operation facilities. Notably, the August 25th evacuation orders of Deir al-Balah governorate adversely affected 15 UN and NGO guest houses, 4 UN warehouses, and the Al-Aqsa Hospital and other facilities. IDF evacuation orders hindered both humanitarian access to populations in need and access to aid by civilians, increasing food, health, protection, shelter, and water, sanitations, and hygiene need amongst an increasingly vulnerable population following more than 10 months of conflict. Just so we're all clear, they know. They're well aware of how horrifying things are. Then there are diplomatic cables and channels explaining in very plain terms, that this is the case.
And this is a second fundraiser for that effort. You can find it in the description right up at the top. We'll put it. So if you have any extra money and you'd like to donate to this cause, Gaza bakery feeding displaced families. We have some footage of those efforts if you don't mind pulling that up, Bradley.
And while you're doing that, I mean, October 28th, 2023, The Guardian, airstrikes on Gaza bakeries add to catastrophic food shortages. That was October 28th, 2023.
Yep.
Al Jazeera, Gaza bakeries targeted and destroyed by Israeli air attacks. That was November 2nd, 2023. It's not gotten better since then, obviously.
Here's some of the footage of the food distribution. Here, let's see. And then it was the kids on the beach is what I was, yeah, here we go. This was the food distribution piece.
It's hell.
We just have a little bit more short footage here. This is the distribution, yeah. That was a photo of a kid saying thank you, and then this is on the beach. By the way, Israel was just bombing here 2 days ago.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/theserfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Puppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood. With additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.